Alrighty, so I'm going to show you how to measure the height of a tree using a homemade clinometer. I'm using a homemade clinometer rather than a professional clinometer because a professional clinometer costs upwards of $100, and I'm not paying that when I'm not a professional arborist. So for my needs, this is close enough. I've got some trees out on the property out here that I think might be state champion candidates. A Loblolly bay and a pond pine. I need to get out there and get some decent measurements of them in order to submit them as a candidate and get a professional out here to do a vetted measurement of the things. So first I'm going to calibrate this clinometer against that chimney over there. I already measured it, and it's 19 inches up to the eave of the roof. So let me just show you what I've done to make this clinometer. It's an angle level, 2 bubble levels, a block of wood with a little O-ring and a nut held in there by a piece of steel, and this little flat piece of wood on the side to act as a brace. And this hollow tube is actually an optic. Well, it's a reticle, I should say. You line that little flat, let me show that again. You line that little flat part in the middle of that wire up with whatever you want to measure. In order to properly use this thing, you also need a tripod with pitch controls. I'll torque that down too much. And you mount it on here like this, and then you basically tip the tripod up and down in order to find your level. It also needs adjustable legs so that you can get this thing level horizontally. Let me give a quick explanation of how a clinometer works. A clinometer, also known as an inclinometer, measures the angle between the front of the clinometer, or your eye in some clinometers, to the object you're looking at. And with that angle, you're able to, it's either pre-calibrated in the instrument, or in my case, it just gives you the angle. And from that, you can calculate the height. And by you're using the Pythagorean theorem. Between the instrument, the base of the object you're looking at, and the top of the object you're looking at, you form a right triangle. Well, actually, you form 2 right triangles, but I'll get into that. And by controlling the distance between you and an object and knowing the angle, you can calculate the tangent of that triangle, and you can come up with a distance for the height. All right, let's do an example. The clinometer will be the eye, it's the instrument, and the base of the triangle will be the bottom of that chimney, and the top of the eave there, that'll be the top of the triangle. That's the height I'm trying to measure. I've already measured that. That's 19 feet, almost spot on. I think it might be, I think it's like 19 and an inch and a half or something like that. So it's close enough. And also of note is that the clinometer is about 3.5 feet off the ground. So if you set this at 0 and then measure the height, you're going to come up 3.5 feet short, because you're measuring the height from the instrument to the top. So you also have to calculate the tangent for the triangle formed between the instrument, the 0 point, and the base. So really you have to do this twice. You have to take the clinometer, measure the height, and then measure the base. And that'll give you 2 angle readings. And for each one of those, you have to calculate the height and add those numbers together. With arborical readings, typically the length of the clinometer to the object you're measuring is controlled at 100 feet. Let me do a little example here, and then I can show you that it works and get a rough calibration for this. Alrighty, well, I'm back 100 feet now, so the next step is to level the clinometer. And all I really have to do is just drop this leg down a little bit. Alrighty, well, that's close enough for my needs. The next step is, anyway, you just line this up with the roof, and then you take your angle measurement. Let me just get that nice and accurate first. This appears to be reading about 9.5. Oh yeah, I did the math, and it's 10.8 should be the angle I'm looking at. But we're not done yet. Now we have to check the distance to the base. Just line it up with the base. I've already got it. It's pretty dang close. And this appears to be reading 1.5. So that comes out to what, 11? So that's pretty close. I think that gives us like 19 1/3, something along those lines. So it's not perfect, but it's pretty accurate. It's within 5%. That's good enough for me. I guess that's more like 2.5%. No. Yeah, it's half a 20, so it's a 40th. That's close enough for arborical work. Let's go out and test this on an actual tree. Here we have a rather large Loblolly bay, Gordonia lasianthus, and I think this might be the biggest in the state. I've measured it before, and by those measurements it came out to about, I think, 6 points higher than the current champion for the species. I'm going to try and get another estimate of the height after I take a diameter measurement again. Alrighty, the circumference came out to 7 foot 9 inches, or 93 inches. Alright, now I need to get a crown measurement, which is the widest diameter of the crown averaged with the shortest. And I think this ended up being about 40 last time I did it. 50 one way, 30 the other, or something along those lines. So I'm going to try and run this as accurately as I can over there. Alright, the longest part of the crown looks to be 47.5. Alrighty, and the shortest crown diameter appears to be 29.5 feet. Alright, I've got our level, 100 foot. And there's the tree. So now I got to measure the base and the tip of the crown. And then from there I can calculate the height. Alrighty, the negative height for the base appears to be floating right around 2. And the positive height is sitting dead on 35. The tangent of 2 gives me 3.5, and the tangent of 35 gives me 70. So that's a height of 73.5 when I add them together. Alright, so the two crown diameters were 47.5 and 29.5. Add those together, you get 77. Divide that by 2 and then by 4, and you get 9.625. The height was 73.5. Add that to that, and the circumference was 93. Add that to that, and you end up with, I believe, 176.125. So I believe that makes this a prime candidate to get an official measurement and see if it's a champion. Here we have a pond pine, Pinus serratina. This one's not particularly tall, but it's pretty dang big around. And ooh, if you look closely, there's a corn snake on the side of it. Awesome. But anyway, if you look closely, you'll notice that there are a lot of dead branches on the side of it. The cones are not oblong, they're spherical. And this pine straw is like a pale yellow. And those are all characteristics of pond pine. Pond pine is adapted to habitats with a lot of fire, but instead of like a longleaf pine where it just survives being burned all the time, it actually just loses its leaves, and instead it sheds leaves, sheds limbs, sheds branches, and just continues to grow. And the pine cones only open when they're burned, or, well, in this case, I guess when they fall off and die. So, but that's how they're adapted, and those little morphological characteristics are how you tell it apart from, say, loblolly pines, like those over there. Because they look pretty dang similar otherwise. Alrighty, so the circumference is 83.5. Alright, the widest canopy diameter is 45.5. And the shortest diameter is 34 dead on. Alright, I'm 100 foot from the tree and I managed to do so without getting run over. So I guess I will now take a height measurement. Alright, the negative height reading for the base is 2. The positive height reading seems to have settled on 35.5, so that's what I'm going to go with. Alrighty, now that half the people living on Little Britain Road have left and half the people have come back home, I can give you a summary of the points for this tree. So it was 99.5 inches in circumference, 75 feet tall. It had a maximum crown diameter of 45.5 and a minimum crown diameter of 34. So 34 plus 45.5 equals some number divided by 8 ends up with 9.9375. Add 99.5 to that and 75 and you end up with 184.5 minus about a 32nd of an inch that I don't think anyone cares about. So I'm just going to round up to 184.5. That's pretty good for a pond pine. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And I hope that if you decide to measure trees, you just go ahead and shell out the $150 and buy a professional clinometer, because that thing's kind of a pain to use if you're, taller than 5'5". All right, Tom out.